There's many reasons for why I'm going to speak to you guys like this for certain purposes to discuss things. But fact of the matter is, Complex News did a good rundown, except you didn't tell the full story. You didn't detail the different altercations that were going on around Tentacion with the suspects, nor did you include the fact a witness had allegedly put up photographs and information beforehand. So before anything was discussed in detail or authorities even arrived, information went up on social media. Now, why was this allowed? Why would that be okay? These are the things I'm not understanding. This doesn't make sense to me. There's many different factors that haven't been examined yet, and assuming authority is the real authority, it was cool for you to give out all the details on the evidence and why you got everyone, but how come you're not speaking as to why someone could put the issues on social media and not be reprimanded for it? So you're okay with that, even if contradictions were in that witness's story? Even if he took a picture of the alleged deceased assailant and victims? I'm not understanding this. This makes no sense. We even have, on one of the suspects' posts, they were videotaping Tentacion before the whole thing went down. So that leads me to believe, did they know more than a robbery would occur? In Complex News, mentioning the suspects, knowing their whole history, what they were picked up for, but they didn't even go into detail on what drug that some of the suspects were arrested for, let alone implicated for. Now, all that's true, and that was something I'm going to get into a little bit later about the accident that happened afterwards, dealing with the car and different things. But understand, in my opinion, that would be us going over details that are filler. None of it has to do with the actual case that has not been declared as any understanding. Where's the security footage? So you're telling me, Complex, you're a major news station and you have no security footage, nothing to show the actual assault? Now, we know for a fact Riva Motorsports had cameras. That's not up for discussion. There's nothing objective about that. They had cameras. Why hasn't the evidence been analyzed? If you can talk around why you picked these people up in such detail, why can you not go into detail about what's actually not being expressed? Why does this witness get a pass that took a picture of a deceased person? Whether it was Tentacion or not, they took a picture of a deceased person and pushed it to social media. How many stories do we have of individuals who push stuff to social media and not only had it confiscated, but had it taken down by the actual social media site because of the sensitive information involved in the investigation? These are things that major news stations tend to not speak about. Now, I don't know what their reason and motive is for, but it's obvious to tell that there's some type of deeper motive or motivation to allow them to do such, and then to look around like nothing's wrong for them doing it. This needs to stop. This is too prevalent, and it happens too often in major cases. Now, I do not support that. And you could go check out the Complex News story that details everything we've already known and been seeing. But the question is, why aren't they mentioning certain things? How does a witness show up first on the scene, but they're not questioned? How does a news anchor do a news story and it doesn't show up on no major news channel? And allegedly another news channel reaches out to this person that is from this alleged news channel to try to acquire what footage they have. Well, if you're looking for that, don't worry, you wasting money, because they don't have truths in anything they're talking about. All he did was walk around, picture the deceased person, that's all, and then push it to social media, that's all. You can't be reprimanded for that, just like you've done every other person. In other cases, they did the same thing, especially video. This is all shaky, and that's where it gets to a point where answers are not going to be given how we'd like to. Matter of fact, you may be in the midst of a conspiracy to cover up an alleged incident. Now, if this is the case, more concerning details come up regarding authority as to how they could turn their head when this type of stuff is going on. Well, ultimately, it shows me which side you're on, and that you may have deeper implications to cover up other things. I don't know if someone did their job wrong or if someone got a payday. Who knows? All these things are speculation and up for objective view. But what I need to understand is why now is Complex mentioning the suspects? Why weren't you mentioning it at the height of it? Let alone you can mention the fourth suspect, but you don't mention that he's still on the run allegedly? Is that because he's already in custody and they're prepping for a story of what kind of evidence they're going to hold against him? Now, I understand that you guys have integrity to keep, that you have some type of level of social means to protect. But what about these people who you're alleging of a crime when there was someone in the car who hasn't even been mentioned yet? Are you going to come out later and say he was by himself? Yeah, we seen him by himself right there in the video that was put up by the alleged suspect. But that doesn't mean he entered the store alone because of the witness testimony saying someone ran from the car. That is the one thing I believe. Someone exited that car and ran, but they were the setup man, allegedly for, let's say, a deeper cause. So they got to have their name wiped away from the situation. So now they get away scot-free, like nothing was supposed to happen to them. I'm not understanding that. Who was the man leaning in the window? You see, and when all the news drops, however they word it, put it together, you guys are going to have to describe this stuff. And I'm telling you, you're going to slip up doing it, because if something's not done right, if this man wasn't allegedly done dirty in a plot, it's going to come out. You can try and hide information, hold it off, edit video. You could do all of that. There's still going to be a means to show whether you're telling the truth or not. That's one thing I want to put out. Even with the evidence they're allegedly claiming you picked these people up for, there's going to come a turning point. Let me ask, are the witnesses from the shop where the masks were brought being used as direct evidence? If they aren't, there's a lie somewhere. Is circumstantial evidence being used from the crash and the incident of the time? You see, because they said the car used within it. Then they said one of the suspect's girlfriends told on them. It's all hearsay. Unless you have some type of circumstantial or direct evidence, is she going to get up on a stand against them? If she chooses not to, you just lost your evidence to hold most people. It's almost like you're setting this up for some people to escape. I know people were saying, are you speaking to help criminals or not? I don't have to. The way they're holding the evidence, withholding evidence, and even applying the evidence to the situation is going to do it for them. Even if they're trying to help people up, they're going to make them escape because of how they're handling evidence. And this is not speculation. This is all factual because of the way they're handling it. And it gets you to a point where you're like, you can catch normal Joe Schmo doing something, but let something happen to a superstar, you dance around information like it's a ballet. Yeah, you can have complex news, do this detailed expression, and all this other good stuff, but what does it really amount to when circumstantial evidence can't be turned to tangible evidence, can't be turned to admissible evidence? All of this is a dance for the media. Why are they dancing for the media? That's the question. Why now are they asking Complex News on this day that I have recently mentioned the stepfather and their relations and how he relates to the situation? Are they doing a dance about the suspects? Who was in that car? How did they know there was a bag of cash in there? Are these four suspects psychic? Did they wake up one day like, oh, Tentacion's going to Riva Motorsports. Oh, let's ambush him there. Because none of these people he had a talking, working relationship with. None of them. Yet, it comes out that all this stuff is happening in favor of cops. All they're doing this. All they did this because of the evidence. Oh, make it seem like you're doing your job when you're not. You've never been. And that's the problem. Let's look at the history of these suspects and see why were they free. How? What technicality did they get out of jail with? How'd that happen down there? Oh, what? Other states are more lenient towards felonious activity than others? Maybe so, but I know Florida ain't one of them. Are you kidding me? Just a lot of dancing for the camera and a lot of speculation thrown around as, oh, off of this evidence. Did they say what type of evidence? I dare them to have said tangible. What's tangible? In the Complex News interview that the guy recently gave, there was one person flashing hundreds. One person off of sandals. Then the other two were just arrested off of video. One of them, you alleged to be the shooter. Did you find gunpowder residue on his hands? They're literally cutting corners to allow for the general population to be held on evidence that isn't tangible, but they skip tangible from circumstantial straight to admissible. You guys need to think. This is an attack. It's not an attack on Tentacion. It's not an attack on these four men. It's an attack on the court system. The way they review evidence, the way evidence is accepted. If we allow them to accept evidence as is without someone getting their fat butt up from that hot seat in that Broward County precinct and doing real investigative work, you're letting them get handed checks for half-assing their job. It is what it is. They're walking through it saying, oh, that was evidence, this was evidence, oh, they were done for this, done for that. All of it's building to build a personality game in court where prosecution is going to run down the history and they'll accept the present. Not that they didn't do it, but think. This is going to affect millions. Everyone think adversely. Think critical. You know how I rock. All rights reserved.